Hi, I'm Michelle McEwen, and I'm the founder of Digitability. Welcome to our third webinar in a series, Executive Function and the Orchestra in Your Brain. Joining us today is Catherine Chase. Welcome, Catherine.
Thank you for having me.
Catherine is a psychoeducational diagnostician. She was the first educator to ever be awarded a fellowship in developmental and behavioral pediatrics from Harvard Medical School. She has additional fellowship work at the Children's Hospital of Boston. She also earned a master's focusing on curriculum and instruction from the Catholic University of America and has additional advanced training in educational diagnostics from Tufts University. With over 30 years of experience in the field of education, diagnostics, and intervention, she's currently holding the appointment of advisor to the Digitability curriculum and serves as an associate interventionist at the Pediatric Wellness Network in Marlton, New Jersey. So Catherine, welcome. The first question I'd like to start with is, what is executive functioning?
Executive functions is a complex system for processing in the brain. They are critical for development and learning. Executive functions allow us to retain and work with information, focus our attention, filter distractions, and switch mental gears from one bit of information to the next. They integrate with each other to control our cognitive processes, and they provide critical support for learning and development. While there are many elements to executive function, there are three basic dimensions that we'll cover in this webinar. Working memory, the ability to hold information in mind and use it. The second one, sustained attention, the ability to master thoughts and impulses so as to resist temptation, distractions, and habits, and pause and think before acting. And then mental flexibility, the capacity to switch gears and adjust to changing demands, priorities, or perspectives. There is a classic metaphor that helps us remember executive functions, thinking, and behavior. Dr. Thomas Brown is a psychologist at Yale University, and he specializes in assessment and treatment of students with cognitive disabilities. He would like us to imagine a conductor of an orchestra when we think of the term executive function. The conductor chooses what work the orchestra will perform, decides how to interpret that work, sets the tempo for the performance, and directs each section of the musicians to contribute at the appropriate time. In the same way, executive functions allow us to self-regulate by cueing, directing, coordinating the various cognitive skills necessary from or for moment-to-moment functioning.
Well, it's really interesting to learn how dynamic executive functions in the brain are. And as you're talking, I'm thinking of my own executive functions in memory, attention, or my ability to shift flexibly. So how do these functions play out for students who have learning and behavioral deviations or disabilities?
Well, executive functions play a dynamic role with students with behavioral and learning disabilities, and they are critical in promoting social and school success. Let me give you an example. For instance, when students are reading a passage, paragraph, or even an entire book, they are holding on to a few things at once. They are holding on to the theme of the content while simultaneously processing new information. For example, who was Walt Disney? Who, by the way, had dyslexia. It is a biography, and when a student is reading it, the student is first holding on to the theme of who Walt Disney was, but then simultaneously identifies other main characters in the story, recalls the setting, the plot, and understands the conflict as the student reads through the new content and then processes the new content for comprehension. To go back to our orchestra metaphor, That means that the violins are all playing in harmony. But as you move up through the school system, the memory load requirements increase significantly. That means that more violins are being added to the orchestra and playing at a faster tempo. Now we hear drums in the video. That's our sustained attention keeping the beat so we stay focused. As the brain is using working memory to hold on to themes and manage new information, the brain also needs to sustain attention to complete the task. So, as the student is reading and using working memory to process the many elements of the story, the student must sustain their attention to the current task of reading. In order to sustain, the student is using their self-regulation skills to avoid distraction and impulses. For example, if the student is not sustaining their attention, then they will be leaking information from their working memory. They won't be able to recall important information from the text. So when the percussion section is offbeat, the violins skip or lose notes from the song. We've talked about both working memory and sustained attention as it relates to how executive functions play a role in reading comprehension. Now we'll focus on mental flexibility, which is the capacity to switch gears and adjust to changing demands, priorities, or perspectives. As the student is reading the passage, they are still using working memory and sustaining their attention. But they are also shifting gears from main idea to the supporting details, then to identifying known vocabulary as well as potentially unknown vocabulary.
As a teacher, but she gave up her career to raise her family.
Mental flexibility means that even as a student is teasing out the supporting details, they are shifting back to how the details relate to the main idea. Another example of mental flexibility is when a new character is introduced, the student will shift flexibly back to the memory of the main character to process the relationship between the two characters. The percussion will keep the tempo, meaning the brain will sustain mental effort and self-regulating. With this tempo or sustained effort, all of the string instruments play to the theme together, flexibly shifting all the time to maintain the harmony and at the direction of the conductor. This is executive functioning.
Wow, the orchestra metaphor makes understanding executive function really clear and how dynamic it is. But I'm curious how it impacts individuals with cognitive disabilities and their capacity to develop the dynamic elements to executive functions.
Well, often society views intelligence or our capacity as fixed, as though we're born with a certain capacity and we have limits. Like, for example, the IQ score. We get a score of average or superior, and we think that that score will determine our success in school or life. However, we know that the brain's capacity is not fixed. Thinking is not fixed. It's the same with executive functions. They can be developed. That is why so many researchers are increasingly emphasizing how crucial it is for all learners to develop their executive functions and for educators to utilize these strategies or the strategies of executive functions. They impact all aspects of student learning, especially as they approach adolescence and their transition to independence.
Yes, transition to independence is exactly what we're focused on here at Digitability. We believe that technology helps level the playing field so that students with a wide range of learning disabilities and behavioral disabilities can develop those executive functions. So as our advisor to our curriculum development, we would really love for you to outline some of the strategies that you've helped us incorporate into our curriculum and how they link to developing these executive functions for students with a variety of learning and behavioral disabilities.
So there are several general strategies that can be used to support executive functions. Let's start with working memory. When students struggle with working memory, they are not fully managing to hold on to all of those elements of the story and therefore score low in reading comprehension. One strategy for developing working memory is chunking information. For example, Digitability online learning program chunks information through the process of task analysis. In other words, it's breaking down the information or the task into the smallest manageable chunks to process. For instance, the lesson on using a Google Calendar app breaks down each step to creating a calendar event.
You clicked on the calendar link and clicked on the Create button to create a new event. Now, add the title School Field Trip to the title field.
As you noticed, when Alex was going through the calendar event, step by step, during the activity section, she had to repeat it to herself. So she was giving herself auditory repetition in order to meet with success. She needed that slow pacing for her to meet with success. With the structure and repetition throughout the program, students increase their capacity in working memory. Now, utilizing the same Digitability module when using an online calendar, we can look at strategies for sustaining attention and self-regulation. First of all, Digitability feels like a game to students. Nothing is more fun than unlocking reward badges and playing games during the school day. This alone helps increase motivation, which promotes sustained attention. In addition, the classroom economy portion of Digitability program again positively reinforces students' behavior and increases self-regulation. Motivation is one part of sustained attention. Another part consists of self-monitoring, prioritizing, and time management. Students using the Digitability curriculum keep a calendar of project deadlines and steps along the way. And that will promote self-monitoring, prioritizing, and time management. Okay, now what we're going to do, you have your project due, your slide presentation due on Friday. So when do you think you can have the first 3 slides?
Can you try to let me get the halfway of the slide done tomorrow, and I will be on the track to get done by like Friday. I'll try to get it all done by Friday.
Okay, well how about if we go to Wednesday?
Okay.
All right, because tomorrow is Wednesday, so let's put that down in your calendar. And we're going to have 3 things that I want to see on Wednesday.
What
so
do you
what's
want me
the
to
title?
say for my title?
It will be your slide 3 slides due on Wednesday. Today, calendar apps such as a Google Calendar can not only be accessed on the computer, but also on a phone or other devices. When you have a visual tool like this, you can break down a project into manageable parts. Finally, we can look at mental flexibility, and first, specifically teasing out saliency or the important information. Digitability builds the capacity to tease out important information. Through the interactive assessments at the end of each chunk lesson, students are required to identify the important information before receiving their reward of the badge. To answer the activity correctly, they will need to flexibly shift back to the information taught in the lesson. And if they are struggling, the Digitability program has built-in visual and verbal prompts to help to shift flexibly.
Try again. Remember to add a new event to your calendar. Click the Create button. The Create button is red. It looks like this. Now, add a new event to your calendar.
Flexibility is key because flexibility allows this behavior to be generalized to social and school situations. So let's look at this flexibility in sending an email. Let's use that example. That is a great example to use. The amount of shifting that occurs in email is enormous. Logging into your email account is a process in itself. Then you're navigating the email interface to find the Compose button. You will eventually shift from entering the email address of the person you need to send the email to. Next, you'll need to write a subject line that is relevant to the content of the email, along with the actual content of the email. The mental flexibility needed becomes even more complicated if you want to send an attachment or include a Google Drive doc to your email. So we all went through the flexibility of shifting through the email. Now for myself, it's intuitive, and for many of the viewers, it's intuitive sending emails. But when I first learned how to send an email, it was not intuitive. It was quite challenging for me. I wasn't always comfortable using technology with my students. I'm strong now using technology because I learned it through the Digitability program. So now imagine students that do not have efficiency with executive functions, like students with autism, language disabilities, learning disabilities, cognitive disabilities. These students require this type of instruction that Digitability provides. Now, here's our student, and let's hear from her about why this type of instruction is so impactful to her.
When people talk slow, I can get more what they're saying, like what Digitability is. Like when the audio starts talking, like the girl, when she says, like, the lesson is going on, like she talks very slow, and then I get it all in my mind. And it's like when you save something, like in a calendar, you save it, and it's going right into my memory and saving it because it's going really slow. Like when you write, you go like dun, 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 dun. And now I saved it in my memory.
The student is talking about processing speed in the Digitability lessons. She expresses how much the slowing down of verbal information is important to her. This helps the student to not only process all the necessary auditory information, it is also crucial for holding on to information in working memory. This ultimately will assist the student in meeting with success during educational lessons, especially comprehension tasks.
Well, yes, we absolutely agree with you. We believe that our program, Digitability, helps students with a variety of learning and behavioral needs access technology, making it accessible to develop a true literacy that will help support their transition to independence. I'm curious, since we're talking about motivation and attention, or sustaining your attention, you seem like you've developed a really dynamic set of skills around using technology in your interventions and your diagnostics. What motivated you to sustain attention and develop those more advanced skills so that you could incorporate them?
Okay, so when students come to my office, they prefer to use technology as a means of learning. So it was really crucial for me to really strategically use technology for their growth. I really have become a stronger interventionist and diagnostician because of the Digitability program. I have actually used this with my students, and it has promoted a stronger outcome in their behavior as well as their academic progress. Overall, I've seen significant growth in their progress, even with their peer relations, which is so important. I think the most important thing about the Digitability program is that the children are enjoying learning, and at the same time, we're increasing their efficiency in executive functions.
Wow, this has been extremely informative. Catherine, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It has been a pleasure.
And thank you all who joined us on the webinar this afternoon. Be on the lookout from an email from Digitability, which will include an archive to this webinar, as well as free supplemental materials from our curriculum, so you can begin to develop executive functioning with your students. Catherine will be here to answer any questions that you might have. If you have a question for Catherine, please type it into the chat box now.